Hi there, welcome back to Azure Bicep from Scratch episode number 2. If you haven't already seen the episode 1, we are setting up everything for Bicep. I'll link that in the card above and description below as well. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please bump the subscribe button and come join my learning community. Alright, so in the last episode, we installed Azure CLI, set up the Bicep extension, and deployed a resource group. Today, we are deploying something real inside that resource group, a storage account. And I'm going to type out every single line from scratch so you understand exactly what each piece does. I'm also going to break down the template on purpose a couple of times because reading error message is a skill and I want you to see what they look like before you hit them on your own. Alright, let's get into it. Alright, so let's create a new file. I'm going to call this main.bicep. And this time we're not setting target scope because we are deploying it into a resource group which already exists. That's one less thing to worry about. Now, every resource in Bicep follows the same pattern. Let me type it out. We start with the resource block first. That's the keyword that tells Bicep we are declaring a resource. Then comes the storage account, which is the resource name itself that we will be using. That's just a symbolic name. This name only exists inside your Bicep file. Then comes the string Microsoft.storage/storage accounts. This tells Azure exactly what you're creating and which API version to validate against. And here's what most people get wrong. They try to memorize these type strings. Don't do that. So I'll pick up the storage account and the latest API version. And next, coming into the curly brackets, we'll start off with the name of the storage account. Starting with the name and colon first, inside the single quotes, I'll type cloud with sing str as storage and just put random number 20 at the end. Then comes the location. This is where you want the resource to physically live. I'm using East US in this case. And the kind, this tells Azure what type of storage account to create. Storage V2 is general purpose V2 account and it's one you always want. SKU is the pricing tier, which is standard LRS. All right, that's it. Let's head over to the terminal and we'll deploy this using our AZ deployment command. Since we already have the resource group in place, all we need to do is run AZ deployment group create. This is going to create a deployment on existing resource group passed in by -- resource group and the name of the resource group, followed by -- template, which is the name of the template file that we want to deploy. Notice the difference from the last time. It's AZ deployment group create instead of AZ deployment sub create. And instead of location, we are just using resource group to tell which Azure resource group to use. We are using the one that we created last time in the episode 1. So while that's happening, I want you to notice something in the results that come up. We did not mention the subscription ID in the template anywhere. We didn't configure any authentication in the Bicep itself, and we didn't specify our tenant. All of that comes through AZ login session. The Bicep file only describes what you want to deploy and CLI handles how to deploy and how to authenticate. And it just makes your template more portable. And looking at this, this is really a good use case scenario here. I've got an error saying the API version that I've used is not valid. So what I'm going to do is just pick up one of the API version which is listed in the supported API version, starting with 2025-0801. And I'm just going to replace the API version right next to the storage account API storage account provider and just run the deployment again. All right, so we have our storage account deployed. You can tell by the name, the resource group is mentioned and some other information. Let me head over to the Azure portal and see where the storage account is deployed now. All right, there we have it. The storage account is here. I can confirm the location is what I mentioned. The replication is LRS as we mentioned in the SKU, and the account kind is also storage v2. So we have deployed our storage account and it's sitting in Azure. But right now we're just getting this big blob of JSON in the terminal. What if I want to pull out specific values like storage account, name, or ID or blob endpoint? That's where the output comes in. You define what you want out of your template as a clear output so that you can repurpose or use it somewhere else or pass it down to another file if you need to. All I need to do is just simply add one line called output, give it a name of the output that I want to use, give it a type if it's integer or string, and then just do the lookup based on the resource name, which is storage account is our internal name of the storage resource. And I would just do -name. That will just give me the name. I can follow a similar pattern to get the resource ID and even the keys of the storage. All of that stuff can be pulled down after your template deploys successfully. All right, in this case, I'm going to make a make an intentional mistake of changing this queue to v3 and try to see how the Azure CLI or the Bicep deployment reacts to this. This is super important because I've seen people deploy a template that fails and they just stare at the error message and panic. Error message in biceps are actually pretty good, and you need to know how to read them. We'll let the deployment finish, and we should have some error from the Azure side fairly quickly. In this case, it says account property kind is invalid for request, which is exactly what we made changes to the kind. So I'll revert that kind back to v2. And let me try one more thing here. What I'm gonna do in this case is change the kind back to v2 and go to my name and make it really long character. If you're not sure, storage account has a limit of 24 characters on the storage account name, so you can't go over 24. And as soon as I do that, IntelliSense is giving me the flags right away. So it won't stop me from deploying, but the CLI will just fail when I try to deploy it. All right, let's go back and revert everything that we did. And I'm just gonna do one more round of deployment. This is just to test the idempotency of the bicep template. We already have a storage account in place. We just reverted back everything back to normal, the way it was working on the first attempt. We're good to go. Let this run and we'll come back when it finishes. Now, let me actually change something in this template. I'm going to upgrade this queue from standard LRS to standard GRS. GRS is Geo Redundant Storage. Your data actually gets replicated to a secondary region, which is more expensive, but it's more resilient. So let's run the same command again to deploy and watch this storage account get upgraded in place. All right, back to the Azure portal. Just refresh here and I should see the GRS replication here as soon as the deployment finishes. GRS, the only thing that changed was redundancy setting. The name, the location, the kind, everything was untouched. Bicep looked at what we declared, compared it with what's in the Azure, and updated only the property that was different. That's the power of desired state. You don't write script that says, go change this on one property. You write a file that says, this is what I want. And the deployment engine figures out how to get there. Alright, that's the episode number 2. You wrote a storage account template from scratch, you deployed it, you added output, you broke it on purpose and read the error message, and you saw how idempotencies handle the real property change. Every bicep template you write from here follows the same pattern we just learned. Resource keyword, symbolic name, type, properties. In the next episode, we are going to make this template actually reusable. Right now, everything is hard-coded, the name, the location, this queue, and that's fine for learning. But in the real world, you need the same template to work across dev, stage, and production. And all of that without editing the file itself. That's the parameters, and that's the episode number 3. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please bump the subscribe button and come join my learning community. I will see you in the next one.